Hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to be discussing speed control in SSLU. For those who don't know, speed control essentially means that you need things that can potentially outrun opposing Pokemon to take them out. Especially if they're offensively threatening Pokemon, you can't always hard wall or counter with your defensive Pokemon. For instance, let's say you're facing a Cinderace. Cinderace is a great threatening Pokemon. It has access to moves like Pyro Ball, Gunk Shot, and Zen Headbutt, boosted all by Libero, giving it Stab on top of a high base attack stat. Because of that, it's going to be hard to wall. Even things like Toxapex can get 2-KO'd by Zen Headbutt, or a Powdon can get 2-KO'd after a couple U-turns by Pyro Ball, especially if it's an Adamant Cinderace. In addition to that, Cinderace is also a very fast Pokemon. Because of that, it's more likely they're not going to revenge kill at least 4 or 5 Pokemon on your outrun 4 or 5 Pokemon on your team. Because of that, you need something to revenge kill it. A revenge kill is essentially being able to outrun and take something out after it kills you, or it does damage to one of your Pokemon and you're able to pivot it in safely. For instance, let's say the Cinderace goes for a Pyro Ball, and it does 45% to my Mandibuzz, depending on if I'm physically defensive, specially defensive, and so on and so forth. I then go for a U-turn into it with my Mandibuzz, and I'm able to bring in something like my faster Dragapal or my faster Alakazam. So long as it's not Sucker Punch, which isn't particularly common, then I'm able to revenge kill it with the Life Orb Psychic or the Draco Meteor. But I do have to be careful of that Sucker Punch, which is why there are other revenge killing forms that are priority proof, such as my own priorities, such as having Pokemon boosted by weather that aren't as frail. For example, Excadrill is able to live a Sucker Punch, or in Rain, Swift Swim Kingdra is able to live a Sucker Punch. There's a whole diverse array of revenge killers that function in this metagame right now. We're going to go over a whopping 24 possibilities for revenge killing in the metagame. However, there is one revenge killing option that I want to highlight first and foremost, and that is Choice Scarf Ninja's. With the ability to run a plus speed nature and 160 base speed, it already hits 460 speed. If you add plus 1 speed onto that, it's already hitting around 700 speed. Then if you give it speed boost and agility, it's easily able to come over 2000 speed, outrunning even the most fast Pokemon that are boosted to the max. Jokes aside though, unfortunately, speed control is not as simple as using the fastest Pokemon. You could sort this by speed in your team builder and you see things like Ninjask or a Selgor. These Pokemon are not necessarily your best revenge killers. This is a myth that a lot of new players fail to understand. Using something like a Scarf Barraskewda or a Scarf Jolteon or a fast as you can a Selgor or Ninjask is not going to be effective. No. What makes a revenge killer, what makes something that is able to function as speed control on your team is a practical option. Something like Zeraora and Dragapal, which has a niche in the metagame, can be consistently threatening and defeat common offensive Pokemon in a 1v1 scenario, but it still has that speed asset. It's a combination of things. It's the best of both worlds. You don't just take the fastest Pokemon, otherwise we'd see a lot more Ninjask and a Selgor, and a lot less Pokemon like, say, Scarf Togekiss or Scarf Jirachi, which aren't the naturally fastest Pokemon, but quite on the contrary, they serve as revenge killers due to some other assets that they have, aka Serene Grace and Flinching, coupled with the fact that they have assets like Trick, or the ability to U-turn for Jirachi or Defog for Togekiss. So yeah, but those are just some options, so we're getting to them later. Now, before we get into the revenge killers and the Pokemon that can function as speed control on your teams, we need to discuss the Pokemon that we're going to need to revenge kill. I'm going to give you just 6 examples, but this can apply to a whole slew of offensive Pokemon. Some Pokemon that I didn't list that are worth noting are things like Excadrill or Rotom Heat, Pokemon that can pose offensive threats and are common within the metagame, but are not necessarily the most offensive Pokemon and the most polarizing options in the metagame, and therefore I'm not going to include them here. This is just 6 Pokemon that came to the top of my head. So let's say you're facing an Urshifu, and you have your physically defensive Clefable or your Toxapex plus Mandibuzz core, so you're able to switch your Toxapex in and Wicked Blow and then regenerate out and go to your Dark Resist like Mandibuzz or something like that. So you have it checked defensively, but what if they take a knockoff, or a burn, or a paralysis, or get shipped by Spikes and Stealth Rock repeatedly, and all of a sudden they're weakened? It could be really a whole assortment of things, but then let's say you're able to just force them and their Pokemon in and out repeatedly because you're both chipping each other out, but eventually they get the Urshifu in safely. Let's say you got to kill on something and they foddered their Pokemon, whatever it might be, and they bring their Urshifu in safely against your weakened Mandibuzz, or Ferrothorn, or Magearna, and it's going to threaten to kill it with close combat. Now, if they get that kill, and your check is weakened, so they got to give you some kill, you got to give something up. All of a sudden, you're like, okay, it got the kill, now I need to go to something that's faster and able to take it out. Revenge killing things like Urshifu is pivotal, and that's why a lot of teams like having, if not 1, then 2 things quicker than Urshifu in order to assure that it is incapable of just completely sweeping your team upon things being chipped. And Urshifu fact of the matter is, it's not the fastest Pokemon. In fact, it's slower than base 100s, it's slower than Hydreigon, etc. But while boasting a base 97 speed stat, it is still relatively quick, and having things to outrun it is of the utmost importance. That's why things like Dragapult, which is able to destroy it with Draco Meteor so long as it's not locked in the Sucker Punch, or things like Cinderace, which from 60% should be able to Revenge Killer Shifu. And it's easy to force chip on these things with Stealth Rock, Rocky Helmet, weaker attacks, etc. So the fact of the matter is that Revenge Killer doesn't always need to get a one-shot, but rather needs to take it out from a practical position, and you need to be able to force that chip in the game. Sometimes teams synergize really nicely, whereas if you're able to get, say, Scald, or a knockoff, or a resisted Moonblast on the Pokemon that you're trying to Revenge Kill, then all of a sudden your Draco Meteor or your Plasma Fist from Dragapult or Zeraora, respectively, is able to take it out from there. That type of synergy is very understated and it needs to be emphasized in team building, because sometimes it can be a team effort. You don't need just one Pokemon to Revenge Kill every single thing through killing them from 100%. No. Sometimes teams can coherently flow to a sense that you're always going to be able to get that Shifu below 75% or below 50% for whatever it might be that you're using to Revenge Kill it. But you need to make sure you have that game plan in your mind. You need to make sure you have that plotted out on your team, basically. The next Pokemon that's worth noting is Cinderace, and I also list Cinderace as one of the faster Pokemon, but I don't view it as a true Revenge Killer, especially if it's lacking Sucker Punch, which, in my opinion, it should be lacking more often than not, just because this 4 moveset is so good right now. Honestly breaks it. But with that said, Cinderace is a Pokemon offensively, so having something quicker than it on just about every team barring, say, Full Stall is very important and something that we should be focusing on including in our teams. For instance, using things like Dragapult, Zeraora, or Choice Scarfers, or if you're using weather teams, then the Pokemon that have their speed boosted by weather abilities, are all very crucial in trying to offensively check Cinderace, as there are 2 ways to check and counter Pokemon. Offensively checking and countering them revolves around Revenge Killing and being able to maybe switch in once and then kill it, but not being able to completely check or counter it defensively. Whereas defensively doing so means you're able to switch in repeatedly, or at least once or twice, and be able to not only withstand multiple attacks from it, but also proceed to force it out or kill it. That's the difference. Offensively Revenge Killing things and checking/countering them. Offensive counterplay is what we're focusing on with Speed Control. Speed Control essentially is offensive counterplay. They are largely simultaneously kind of the same thing. With this said, though, there are other Pokemon beyond Cinderace that maybe are a bit less directly threatening, or a bit less potent in what they do, but still very good in the metagame that we need to focus on Revenge Killing. And one of them is Hydreigon. Hydreigon with the Nasty Plot set is just a complete nuke. You're going to need a very specific set of checks or counters in order to keep it in containment. And because of that, having something like Dragapult with Draco Meteor, or Zeraora with Close Combat, or Cinderace with High Jump Kick or more likely U-Turn, or even a Scarf Magearna with Slur Cannon to potentially surprise Revenge Kill it is very important. Having something on your team to make sure that Hydreigon's not going to just clean sweep you is super important, guys. So definitely keep that in mind. Next up, we have Specs Magearna. It's a lot slower than the first 3 options, so thankfully, it's much easier to find things to outrun it. You can bring X-Drill into the equation, Rotom Heat, and of course, then things like Cinderace, etc. So yeah, Revenge Killing it is a lot more likely than the others, and a lot more possible to integrate into your team. However, it's still something to keep in mind, as while it does only 65 base speed, it should still be outrunning your defensive, of course, predominantly. Things like Slower Mandibuzz, Corviknight, Hippowdon, Toxapex, Amoonguss, Slowbro, Clefable, etc. It should be outrunning all of those Pokemon. So while you might have 3 to 4 of them on your teams, definitely have 1 or 2 faster things in Magearna at very least, probably 2 at least. Next up, we have Volcarona. Volcarona, this is a spread that I've been using since World Cup, by the way. My teammate Rob Jr. used it, and a team that Cristo came up with the original 6 of. And it's a really solid team. However, Volcarona does tend to run plus speed a bit more often than not. I just prefer this one in particular. So make sure to have things quicker than base 100s in general, but Volcarona is a prime example of it. And also, make sure your team doesn't lose in the spot to a +1 Volcarona, guys. This isn't always even through defensive or offensive Revenge Killing. It could be a combination of both. Could be through priority. Could be through having something like X-Drill and Sand. Could be through having like a really bulky Haze Toxapex plus something to take advantage of it after Toxapex goes down or it pivots out, etc. And last but not least, Azumarill, which is a bit of a different perspective, as you're going to want to have something that's quicker than it and lives a +6 Aqua Jet. And if you're able to chip it when it sets up, that's great too. Things like Foul Play Mandibuzz, Zeraora, can't do it. No, I don't know. I said Zeraora. Dragapult can potentially do it depending on the set, or at least get a Wisp off, etc. There are a lot of options here. But you need to make sure you integrate one of them onto your teams unless you're going to risk being very vulnerable to Azumarill. But yeah, that about does it for like the prime examples of Pokemon that you want to be able to revenge kill. And Pokemon you definitely want to have offensive counterplay for, as well as the normal defensive counterplay. So I hope that helps you. Anyway, now we're going to be going through 24 possible revenge killers, as well as the different modes of quote-unquote revenge killing of them, if you will. So first and foremost, I want to say that the modes, I guess the 3 modes of revenge killing are going to be just running faster Pokemon. So those examples are going to be Zeraora, Dragapal, Alakazam, Cinderace, Weavile, and Escudo. Running revenge killers that are quote-unquote boosted, be it by Choice Scarf or by their ability, i.e. Sand Rush and Sand, Swift Swim and Rain, Slush Rush and Hail, or Chlorophyll and Sun. And then there's other things like, say, Surge Surfer and Electric Train. I guess, yeah, that's an example. And then last but not least, there's also priority, moves that are purposefully going first due to the mechanics of the moves. Things like Grassy Glide and Grassy Train, Bullet Punch, Sucker Punch, Mach Punch, Aqua Jet, Ice Shard, etc. Extreme Speed, sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the 24 revenge killers in rough order of relevance. It's very rough. I'm not saying, oh, Dragapult's the best Pokemon metagame and Mamoswine sucks. No, this is more, you're going to be seeing these Pokemon function more in revenge killing duties than others. So, yeah. And then I'm going to go ahead and break them down into these categories that I just alluded to. And that's going to basically make for the core of the video. Yeah, that's all I got, I believe. Yeah, it's going to make for the core of the video. So what I want to do now is go through them. But first, I want to ask you guys a question. What is your favorite revenge killer? What is your favorite fast Pokemon used in metagame? What's your favorite Choice Scarf, or whatever it might fall into? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to engage in a dialogue with you guys about that. We've been having so many fun discussions in the chat lately. It's been really lively, and I love talking with you dudes. And on top of that, guys, we recently hit 4,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for that, guys. Our community is growing every single day. In fact, we're well on our way to 5,000, so let's get there. And if you guys want more updates and more discussion, not only with me, but also other subscribers, then be sure to join the Finchinator YouTube channel Discord server. We have over 500 members. It's one of the most active servers, and honestly, it's one of the places I'm the most proud of. So if you guys could join that, great. The link will be in the description below. But with that said, I'm not going to segue too long. I just had to give myself a bit of self-plug, some love. But now we're going to get into the revenge killers in SSOU. The first one is going to be Dragapal, and for the record, these are sample sets, but most of them are resembling the most common sets you're going to see them use when in revenge killing roles. Of course, for Dragapal, things like the mixed Dragon Darts plus Hex set, or the Choice Spec set can function as revenge killers to similar effectiveness. However, the Heavy Duty Boots / Leftovers / Spell Tag, Hex plus Wisp set is currently probably the most common set in my opinion. It tends to be able to revenge kill things with a modest nature for what it's worth, because it's outrunning everything besides, say, Weavile otherwise. So yeah, and other Dragapult, but it's a speed tie, you know how that goes. But anyway, being this naturally fast with base 142 speed lets you outrun things like the aforementioned Shifu or Cinderace easily, even with the modest nature, and it's able to dispose of them from fairly high levels of health thanks to Draco Meteor or Hex if their status as well. Next up, we have Zeraora. Zeraora is a bit of a weird case, as initially in the metagame, it dipped a lot in viability due to people noticing, oh hey, less need to run Grass Knot now because of lack of Seismitoad after Drakefish got banned. But people are still spamming Hippowdon, so it's like awkward. And then people started running Toxic on it and like, oh damn, it hits Hippowdon, hits Rotom Heat, hits other things, etc. But then DLC came and people started using Amoonguss and Tangrowth a ton. On top of that, other fast Pokemon like Cinderace started to rival it, and Rillaboom was around, which not only can soft check Zeraora, but also Grassy Glide it to death. And then other fast Pokemon like Alakazam, etc. And there was just less room for it. But then people were like, wait a minute. Zeraora gives something very clutch that a lot of teams struggle to integrate if they don't have a Hippowdon actually real, and that is a Volt Switch immunity. That roll compression, Volt Switch immunity plus being a fast Pokemon, made it so that people were like, okay, let's consider it again. But I'm still walled by by Amoonguss and Tangrowth. So then they decided to mitigate that by throwing on Volt Switch as the fourth move, which also lets it function as a lot more of an offensive pivot, something that it didn't previously do in the older metagame. In fact, some people are even running special sets to take advantage of this. I personally prefer this one, and Heavy Duty Boots is great to negate hazard damage and let it pivot in repeatedly. But regardless of that fact, the fact of the matter is that Zeraora is still a great Pokemon in metagame. It might not be quite as amazing as it was in the older metagame, but it's still considered a top 10 to 15 Pokemon, and because of that, I view Zeraora as just a really great option as a revenge killer and form of speed control. It also is able to outrun and revenge kill Dragapult for what it's worth, thanks to knockoff and having just one more base speed. Next off, we have Excadrill. Excadrill, for those of you who don't know, has this ability called Sand Rush. Sand Rush makes it so that it's going to be twice as fast when sand is set up by a Powdon or even a Tyranitar, which hashtag save Tyranitar, hashtag use Tyranitar in OU 2020. Bring it up from you guys, come on. Anyway, with that said, it's able to outrun pretty much everything with the base 88 speed and a plus nature when +2. And because of that, it functions as a great revenge killer on sand teams. However, it's only working conditionally, as in, it's only going to function as a revenge killer if sand is set up. And seeing as sand only lasts for 4 or 5 turns, you got to be really careful, especially with how you play stat, because switching from Hippowdon to Excadrill is not always going to work, as they share a lot of weaknesses. Given that, you got to be careful, but again, it's a very workable revenge killer. So, yeah. It's also just a great Pokemon in general, for what it's worth. Excadrill is one of the top 5 to 7 Pokemon right now, so definitely don't take it for granted. Anyway, next up we have a priority revenge killer in Rillaboom. Rillaboom has access to Grassy Glide, which lets it take out things like non-fire/poison type Cinderace, Dragapult from half health, Zeraora from near full, Alakazam or Shifu from 60 or 70%, etc. It's able to revenge kill a select number of things with Grassy Train Up, which is slowly summoned, and Grassy Glide, which makes it one of the premier revenge killing options in the metagame. However, it's worth noting that just throwing on your Grassy Glide Rillaboom to the team doesn't allow you to run 6 slow Pokemon, as you still want to have a Pokemon faster than base 100s and stuff. Otherwise, you're going to really struggle with Pokemon like Volcarona, or other grass-resistant fast Pokemon like Cinderace if it's a fire or poison type, Rotom, Heat, etc. Hydreigon. Because of this, it's definitely not considered a solo revenge killer, but it can help in the act of revenge killing against Pokemon such as Nasty Plot Alakazam, or Swords Dance Excadrill, and that could go a long way. In fact, you could even get a one-shot on both of those Pokemon, I believe. Speaking of Alakazam, and I guess Excadrill because we just finished it, but more importantly Alakazam is also a fast Pokemon. Unfortunately, it's not much of a dedicated revenge killer, but it still functions at a pretty high level in this metagame, in my opinion. Nasty Plot, Psychic, Focus Blast, Dazzling Gleam is my set of choice. However, I've been flirting recently with Teleport variants, and on top of that, you could also use Recover over Dazzling Gleam, or even Focus Blast, depending on the team. Because of that, I think it's a really cool option. But yeah, with that said, I do feel as if it is great as a form of speed control, but it shouldn't be your sole one, again, because it's very frail, and it's not able to outrun things like Dragapult, Zeraora, etc. Not that you need to outrun them, but it's just nice to have a bit more of a durable revenge killer. Something that's not decimated by priority like Sucker Punches on our Shifu and Cinderace, so definitely don't crotch on it too much as a revenge killer, but it can be a good measure to revenge kill, say, non-Sucker Punch Cinderace, or Keldeo and Terrakion, or, say, Rotom Heat from a higher and a health. Yeah, that can come into play for sure. Hydreigon, if you're able to connect on your Focus Blast, you're running Dazzling Beam, and the list goes on. Next one is Urshifu. Obviously, Urshifu doesn't have a ton of base speed, but it still is decently fast. But the real selling point here is the Sucker Punch, the ability to run that on both Bulk Up and Choice Banded sets, which is very strong, able to kill things like Alakazam, Dragapult, and weakened Zeraora. So, yeah, that is very helpful. In addition to that, you can run a Choice Scarf on it, but I personally wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, so these are like your top tier revenge killing options in the metagame. Definitely aren't all standalone amazing options, but integrating them onto your team can reap rewards for sure. Next up, we're going to have the second tier. Now, Cinderace, again, this Pokemon is complicated. With Sucker Punch, it can especially be a good revenge killer against things like Dragapult and Alakazam, but in general, it's still quite fast, falling just short of Alakazam with 119 base speed, leaving it 370 quicker than base 115s, like things like Random Starmie, Raikou. I don't know why I'm talking about these Pokemon. What am I doing? But more importantly, quicker than Pokemon like Gengar at 110, Keldeo and Terrakion at 108, Durant at 109, because apparently I'm mentioning random fringe Pokemon left and right now, etc. Even with the adamant nature, it's able to outrun base 100s and Urshifu, so that can come in handy as well. Next up, we're going to have Jirachi. Jirachi is a bit more of a dedicated revenge killer with the Choice Scarf item. I run this spread in particular to help live 2 hits from Serum, while being able to go for Iron Head with enough attack investment to always 2-kill a physically defensive leftovers. Clefable. With that said, though, you can run other things, other spreads, and even other moves. For example, I love running Trick on this, tricking early in the game, and having a second Wisher or a Wisher on teams with Wish over Healing Wish. I did that more in the pre-DLC metagame, but yeah, Scarf Jirachi is an option. It's seen better days due to the metagame being infested with fire types and bulkier cores, so it's not as effective now, but it could be a cool utility option that can function as a revenge killer with base 100 speed and Scarf. It's pretty much outrunning everything. So yeah, Togekiss is another Scarfer that we see quite a bit on the ladder, as we discussed in my videos. Choice Scarf, Air Slash with Serene Grace, much like Iron Head's Choice Scarf from Jirachi, is a flinching machine. It also is covered with Flamethrower and the ability to run utility moves like Trick, defog, or even the ability to heal itself up with Roost, or it can even run Trick plus Nasty Plot to kind of try and cripple the first switch-in and then sweep later on, if you will. It's definitely a viable revenge killer as well. Next up we have Halucha, which is another conditional revenge killer. It relies upon Grassy Seed and Unburden. With Grassy Train up, Unburden Halucha is able to revenge kill virtually everything at +2, even Excadrill as you run this spread, which lets you live with Scald from Toxic behind the substitute, and that in conjunction with the fact that it outruns a plus speed Excadrill without running a plus speed nature with this much speed investment. So yeah, it's a really handy Pokemon, able to revenge kill things like, say, Volcarona or Alakazam with the Grassy Train boost, which can come in handy on more offensive teams such as Hyper Offense, which you tend to run Halucha on. Next up we have Scarfy Dragon, a Pokemon that I'm very low on. I feel as if it's kind of clunky. It doesn't really do the job against balanced teams. In fact, it's even dead weight against them a lot, but it's really good against Hyper Offense, which can come in handy, admittedly. I don't love Scarfy Dragon at all, but if you're gonna need a revenge killer that's like immune to Psychic types, and you don't want to run Scarf or Shifu, I guess it can work. I don't know. It's kind of meh, but it's seen better days, and it still sees usage on the ladder for whatever reason, so it's definitely worth noting, but it's not something I personally would advise. Next up, though, it's a Pokemon that I would personally advise trying out, and that's Magearna. Any set on Magearna can work, even if Specs is by far the most dominant and easily the only broken set right now. Scarf actually does function decently well. It's able to surprise revenge kill things like Nasty Plot Hydreigon, which we just discussed, and also Cinderace, so yeah, that is cool. Also quicker than Alakazam, being able to nuke it with Slur Cannon, and Focus Blast coverage to catch Excadrill, Ferrothorn, etc. With Volt Switch to retain momentum as well. It can function as a revenge killer with Scarf, but again, it's still not faster than Pokemon like Dragapal and Zeraora, so you gotta be careful there. Anyway, Trick is also really cool for crippling things, and yeah, Magearna's Magearna. You can't really go too wrong with it. With that said, though, we're getting into more fringe options now, Pokemon that you can definitely go a bit more wrong with, I guess you could say. So, given that, we have Venusaur, Kingdra, kind of two Pokemon that you see generally on Sun and Rain teams respectively, due to the ability to boost your speed with Chlorophyll and Swift Swim respectively. Venusaur tends to run growth variants, and conditionally, again, when the Sun is up, it should be able to revenge kill just about everything, and it has the coverage to do so as well. Kingdra is more of a nuke than a sweeping win condition with Hydro Pump Draco, Meteor, Surf, and Flip Turn. You can also run Life Orb over Choice Spec with Hurricane over Flip Turn as an option as well, but yeah, with Swift Swim up, it's able to outrun virtually everything that's not boosted by Rain as well, but again, it does need the Rain up, so it's conditional. Then we have just generally fast Pokemon like Weavile, which the thing with Weavile is that it can also function as a priority user with Ice Shard for things like Dragapult and weaken Zeraora, or boosted Pokemon that are potentially susceptible to Ice Shard from whatever range you help it at, or if they're vulnerable to it through typing weakness. But it's not the best Pokemon right now. It's vulnerable to Stealth Rock. Its coverage is exploited by things like Toxic, being able to tank Nalgoth repeatedly, or Magearna just hard walling it. But it's still a nice fast Pokemon to integrate in your teams. It's immune to Psychic types, it's resistant to Ghost types, so it can function to switch into maybe one move there, here and there like that, and just fire off strong attacks on top of that with a very high base speed of base 125. Yeah. Next up, we have Escudo, which again is a conditional Swift Swim Pokemon. You only really see it on Rain teams, but it does have naturally base 136 speed, and even with the adamant nature, it's quicker than things like Cinderace. Unfortunately, it's slower than Alakazam and Scarf Magearna and Dragapult with this nature, but it's still, it's still quick enough. And with Swift Swim, it's revenge killing literally everything ever. So, yeah, it's pretty strong as well with 123 attack. It's just ridiculously frail with 61, 60, 50 bulk. So don't go switching it into things, barring very weak resisted hits. But with that said, it can function as a revenge killer, in particular on Rain teams. Next up, we have Scissor. Scissor is a great option in the metagame if you're looking for fast and strong priority with Bullet Punch, but unfortunately it has a lot of shortcomings as it can't serve much of a role defensively due to how frail regular Scissor is, and it doesn't really serve much of a sweeping or offensive potential otherwise either, especially due to the lack of pursuit. So unfortunately it's more of a UU option in the long haul. It's going to eventually drop, I feel, but if you want strong fast priority off of a steel type, well, here's your Bullet Puncher for you guys, so go nutty. For sure. Next up, we have Raichu Alola, a Pokemon that I showcased recently on my channel in an OU Live featuring an Electric Drain team with Pinkirch and Raichu Alola. Definitely check out the video if you're interested in how that strategy would work. It's definitely in one of my last 10 or 15 videos, so just, check it out on my channel. But with that said, we can use it as a revenge killer on those Electric Drain teams. Again, it's very niche, but it can function nonetheless, and it also has base 110 speed. That's cool. So with Rising Voltage and Electric Drain, it's going to be hitting like a truck and revenge killing most things. But, again, it's very conditional, and it only works in those select teams. I wouldn't go throwing Raichu Alola onto your normal teams. With that said, though, there are 6 more Revenge Killers that I want to focus on. Those are going to be Darmanitan, Conkeldurr, Crawdaunt, Keldeo, Crocodile, and Mamoswine. So Darmanitan's the first one. On Sun teams, if you're dropping Cinderace/Charizard, you can throw your Darmanitan on as a Scarfer, just nuke things with Flare Blitz in the Sun. It's really, really circumstantial, but I mean, it is technically a Revenge Killer that's viable in the metagame, so I felt the need to discuss it. It has Sky High base, 140 base attack, with nice base HP to help soften the recoil damage, and 95 speed for a Scarfer is pretty impressive, so pretty much faster than every other Scarfer you'll see besides things like Jirachi, which is cool. Again, only on Sun teams, but it can work. Unfortunately, it has some vulnerabilities. You can't let break things like Toxix and Slowbro. Hippowdon even lives 2 in sand as you're reaching the weather, of course, I believe. And on top of that, it's vulnerable to Stealth Rock, and despite having 105 base HP to weaken recoil, it has very low base defense, so there's 55 physical and special defense, so it's not like you can be able to switch into many things besides, say, resistant Moonblast from Clefable, and because of that, you gotta be very careful with it. With that said, though, other Revenge Killers function based off of things like priority, such as Mach Punch Conkeldurr, Aqua Jet Crawdaunt, and Ice Shard Mamoswine. None of these Pokemon are tried and true Revenge Killers so much as they can Revenge Kill things from weakened levels due to their strong priority moves, boosted by things like Guts, Adaptability, and Life Orb, or even the Choice Band in Mamoswine's, or potentially even Crawdaunt's case as well. You really don't want to use these to compensate for fast Pokemon, but rather alongside fast Pokemon to make sure you have a second level of defense so that if you weaken those Pokemon, you can play more aggressively with your natural Revenge Killers and know that you have the priority there as a bit of a safety net, if you will. Then there are 2 other Scarfers that are a bit more fringe picks in the metagame. One being Scarf Flip Turn Keldeo. You can run Stone Edge to make sure you get the kill on +1 Volcarona, which can come in handy, and Flip Turn to ascertain momentum, but all in all, it still really struggles to break things like Toxapex, Slowbro, Amoonguss, Clefable, etc. Because of that, it definitely has seen better days. And Crocodile, which it gives you a Volt Switch immunity, and it can take advantage of Wicked Blow from your Shifu, but that aside, it's entirely circumstantial, and I would not personally advise using it, so be very careful when trying it out. Crocodile, without Pursuit, is just kind of lackluster in the metagame. I hate to say it, but it's true. And yeah, so those are all of the possible Revenge Killers in SSU that hold some degree of consistent viability. There are, I'm sure, other Pokemon that I might be missing or just not covering sufficiently. Feel free to let me know about those in the comments. We could definitely discuss those. But now let's go over the categories of them. So first and foremost, the naturally fast Pokemon, things that tend to have more than base, say 115 or 120 base speed. Those Pokemon are Zeraora. Of course, with the Blazing Fast, 143 base speed, it's able to Revenge Kill virtually everything that's not boosted in some capacity, which we'll get to those boost Pokemon later. It's the fastest viable Pokemon in the metagame right now, barring things like a Selgar, which you only see as a very fringe suicide bleed, not actual Revenge Killer. So yeah. Next up, we have Dragapal, a great Pokemon metagame right now. It tends to run modest just because there's not much in that speed tier. That's how fast it is, because they're always faster regardless. But with that said, it's just a really fast option, and it's super practical due to the typing and the offensive output it has. So yep. Next up, we have Alakazam, boasting 120 base speed, which is really impressive in my eyes. Again, it's not a dedicated Revenge Killer so much as it's just a Revenge Killing option. Other naturally fast Pokemon are Cinderace, which again, it's fast, but it's not really a Revenge Killer, it's more of a breaker, but you can Revenge Kill things like Carmine Clefable or Magearna with it, so, or even Excadrill outside of Sand without the Rapid Spin boost, that's cool too. But yeah, no, you just be careful there. And then Weavile and Barraskewda. Barraskewda, again, kind of conditional to rain teams, but it's fast outside of rain on rain teams, so I figured I'd group it here more so than otherwise. So yeah, these are Pokemon that, you want to have a fast Pokemon like this on your team if you're using a balanced team more often than not. One of them at least. And generally, I try and fit one of Zeraora or Dragapal, but you can use something like Alakazam, Cinderace with something that has priority as well, kind of double up like that. I particularly like them with Rillaboom. So yeah. These are Revenge Killing options. These are naturally fast Pokemon that serve as natural Revenge Killers, and they are very practical on a lot of teams. But that is not all there is to Revenge Killing, as we were discussing. There's also boosted Revenge Killers, which we're going to go through 12 of, because there are a lot of them. A lot of them are conditional, though. For instance, Sandrush Excadrill and Grassy Seed Unburdened Halucha are hinging on a specific set of conditions to be present. For Excadrill, that condition is Sandstream being set, as that doubles its speed, and lets it function not only as a sleeper, but also as a Revenge Killer for things like Volcarona. Halucha, the same goes for it, as it needs Grassy Train Up to activate the Grassy Seed and give it the Unburdened boost, but with that boost, it outruns virtually everything, which comes in handy for sure, but again, it is conditional, so be sure to be careful about that. Then we have a quartet of Scarf users. We have Jirachi, Togekiss, Hydreigon, and Magearna. Pokemon that we discussed previously. Again, I'm more just going over different categories here than going over the Pokemon in depth. So if you skipped to this point for some reason, definitely go back a little bit so you could go over my analysis of each and every potential revenge killer and form of speed control in the metagame. Moving forward though, there are 6 other Pokemon that can serve as revenge killers. I'm trying to get this video between 30 and 40 minutes, so it looks like we're going to get to do that here, thankfully. But anyway, yeah, we have Venusaur, which functions as Chlorophyll, and Kingdra, which can function with Swift Swim, and Raichu, which can function as Surge Surfer with Electric Train. Again, all these Pokemon, conditional revenge killers. We need Sun for Venusaur, Rain for Kingdra, and Electric Train for Raichu, but they can all function as revenge killers and breakers conveniently with those conditions set. And then another trio of Scarf users with Darmanitan, again, hinging on Sun teams, Keldeo, again, very fringe, and Crocodile, again, a very fringe pick. But all do serve as technical revenge killers, and I wanted to include them because your boy does not skimp out on details. No. We go hard. We make sure to include everything because I want you guys to know that I want you guys to know everything about the metagame. I want you all to get better. I'm hearing so much about you guys, hitting new peaks on the ladder and doing super well thanks to my advice. And I just want to say, hearing that stuff makes my day, guys. Keep going, keep improving, and I'm always here to help you guys out, be it with these videos directly, or if you guys have personal questions, let me know in the comments or on Discord in my Discord server. Anyway, with that said, there's also one last set of potential revenge killers, and those are priority users. Again, Rillaboom with Grassy Glide and Grassy Train. It is conditional, but its ability sets it up, so it should be fine. Sucker Puncher Shifu, Bullet Punch Scissor, Mach Punch Conkeler, Aqua Jet Crawdon, and Ice Shard Mamoswine. All priority users which can revenge kill things, especially from weaker health. And generally, you don't want to use them as standalone revenge killers, but you can pair them with some of the faster Pokemon we alluded to before, and that'll do it. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on speed control in the metagame, guys. What's your favorite form of speed control? What's your favorite fast Pokemon? And what slow Pokemon do you love revenge killing with these Pokemon? In addition, how many fast Pokemon do you tend to use in your teams? Do you try and use 2 or 3, or more like 1 or 2? And last but not least, guys, thank you so much for the support. Again, we're recently at 4,000 subscribers. We're getting close to 5,000, so let's keep it going. Be sure to like if you enjoyed the video, comment your favorite part of the video, and your answers to the questions I asked before, on top of anything else you'd like to add, because again, I love engaging with you guys in comments, so comment, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what I do, and throwing a subscription my way would make my day, guys. So yep, thank you guys so much for the support. I know this is a little shorter than the other 2 Metagame Mondays, but we're discussing a whole concept as opposed to a whole archetype, so it's more of a subset of a team. Because of that, I feel like a 30 to 35 minute video is a bit more sufficient, so I hope that's okay. And again, let me know if you have any questions, guys. Have a great day. All right, peace out. It's lit. Bye, guys.